Welcome to Positive Talk Radio. We're glad you're here. I'm Kevin McDonald, your host for this grand adventure, and I thank you for joining us. You see, our mission is to create a positive, personal connection to all things with courage and love. We invite terrific guests, interesting topics, and great conversation, all in a fun, entertaining way. And we always manage to learn something, too. So I hope you will stay right where you are for this episode of Positive Talk Radio. And welcome to Positive Talk Radio. It's a beautiful day in wherever the heck Ann is. Captain Ann, it's a beautiful day there, and it's also a beautiful day where Captain Diana are. If you're wondering why I'm calling them Captain, it's because they sailed from, and I do mean sailed from Seattle, Washington, all the way to New Zealand, which was a magical trip that took a long time. I've known Ann it's been what, since 2003 since we met?
Yep, that's what I was thinking.
Yep, 2003, and we were kind of working together, and there were other folks that were involved, but she always wanted to be of the sea and wanted to learn how to sail and go around the world, and the reason that she's here, she's back after a 14-month journey, and her co-captain, has that how it would work? Are you guys co-captains?
Yes.
Oh, very nice. And they sailed, and it was an actual sailboat, a 45-footer or so. And I got to ask you, Ann, I'll start with you. You sailed. Why would you do such a thing? It didn't just scare the heck out of you?
No, what scares me is driving on 405. Being out on the ocean, I have figured it out. I have complete control out there. When I got to New Zealand, I went up in a helicopter and I thought I was going to die. I was so scared, and I had to realize it was because I wasn't flying the helicopter. So nope, I trust Diana, and I trusted our boat, Arctic Loon, that it was Diana's boat, and we looked forward to every day out there.
So, and how did you two meet?
Well, gosh, I don't remember the year, maybe 10 years ago, I signed up for sailing lessons, and Ann was my instructor. I was in her very first class. So it was at San Juan Sailing, and I think it was about 4 or 5 weekends in a row. We'd go out for an overnight, and that's how we met.
And Diana said that very first day, and it was 2012 because it's when I got my captain's license, and she was in my first class, and she announced, I'm going to get a boat, and my dream is when I'm retired to sail across the Pacific to New Zealand. Well, we did it.
I did it. Yes.
So, and let's talk about your license a little bit, because you got that in 2012. How
Yep.
long does it take to get a captain's license, and what do you have to know to be able to get all of that done and to get a captain's license?
Well, the crazy part is you need 365 days on the water. So luckily, I started sailing when I was 10. Now, I couldn't use my days on the water when I was 10 years old, but I had plenty of days on the water. You have to have 90 in the last 3 years before getting your license, but you can go back all those years. And then you have to go to class, and you have to take 3 pretty serious Coast Guard tests. And then and you have to pass drug tests. So I'm not allowed to use cannabis for any of my aches and pains because I have to have random drug testing.
And that's because it's federal, not state.
It's federal. Right? And no drugs on boats because it's federal.
So you can't have any drugs on the boat. Can you have a beer or two?
Only after anchor.
Yes. We did
Oh,
not drink across the ocean. Seriously.
probably.
One
We
time when we
one
crossed the
time,
equator.
yeah. So we did the King Neptune ritual.
Which is?
Go ahead, Diana.
You explain it better than me. It's just
Okay.
what you
So,
do when you cross the equator.
yeah,
I don't
the
know the
Navy,
details.
it's a Navy thing, and they do rituals. And we didn't do anything crazy like make people jump overboard, but we had met this couple that their 10-year-old son had created a little package. So we had chocolates, and then we had a bottle
I
of
forgot
champagne.
about.
And
Yeah.
yeah. And then we even spilled a little champagne purposely for King Neptune in the water, because that's your ritual to make sure you get safely back to your home port.
So how many crew did you guys have? How did that work?
Well, we started off, Diana and I were there the whole time, but then we used different friends, family, and then different students of mine. So we had a total of 18 different people that came and joined us over the 14 months.
Oh wow.
No
You
more
two
than
must
five. No more than
I'm sorry,
5 at a time.
5 at a time.
6,
Is that
maybe
how,
6.
is that how many beds are on? I don't know what you call. Is it, what do you call a bed on a boat? Is it a berth? What is it?
It's a berth.
Ah, see?
Yes, you got it right.
But
Um,
Kevin, when we crossed oceans at night crossings, we hot bunked. So you never knew where your bed was going to be.
what is hot bunking? What does that mean?
You
Go
sleep
ahead,
wherever
Diana.
there's a bed. Wherever there's a bed, you sleep. Actually, I think almost the entire trip, I slept upstairs to kind of be the backup person for the person at the helm. So I slept outside.
Not the entire 14 months, but every time we were doing crossings. She actually
Right.
got to have her bed when we were anchored.
When we were at a port or at anchor, right?
How many ports of call did you go? And did you have?
How many would you say, Anne? I was trying to think 20 or 30, maybe more when you consider the Sea of Cortez, and it's hard to
Yeah.
think of the places that we stopped. I'd say at least 20 or 30
Or more. I
more.
mean, there were a lot.
Yes.
So now what route? Well, first of all, let me go back. Let me go back into the mists of time. So how long did it? So you had to have 365 days on the water. How did you prove that?
Well, my story was kind of funny. When I was 24, my older brother bought a beautiful 45-foot sailboat. And so I was his delivery crew. So I would take it up to Desolation Sound or the San Juan Islands, and then he'd fly me and my friends back. And then we would fly up at the end of summer and get it. And I had photos that I had organized all in chronological order. So when I had to figure out my hours of, because I never knew back then I would become a captain and need this. I went back to all those photos and I documented all the trips. And then I went to lunch with my brother and I said, I need you to sign some documents. And he goes, I showed him how many days on the water I'd used his boat. And he said, how do you know this? And I lifted up the Excel spreadsheet. And I think I was more embarrassed for him to know how many days on the water that I had used his boat. I have a feeling it might have been more than him because he was a busy lawyer.
And he wasn't expecting you to, borrow in quotes his boat that much.
Oh, he liked, as everyone knows, a boat needs to be used. So I kept the boat in working order. I cleaned it. And so he was happy that I was using the boat.
Mm-hmm.
Is it true? I've heard this saying, and I don't know that to be true or not. The two happiest days in your life are when you buy your boat and then when you sell your boat. Is that true?
We better ask Diana because I haven't owned a boat.
That's a hard one to answer as we speak here today, because My boat is still in New Zealand, and it will soon be put up for sale. I had intended to bring it home, but my life took a different turn. So it will soon be up for sale, and I'm heartsick about it. I will miss that boat. It was my life for about 10 years. So I'm not of that crowd that it's a happy day when you sell your boat.
What about your first boat when you sold it?
Oh, I was happy with that one. That one was constantly breaking down. Although all boats break down, that one was over the top with repairs. So that was a happy day.
Yes. Owning a boat's expensive, isn't it?
It's very expensive. It's never ending, a money pit. Just like everybody says, no exaggeration. It never ends. Endless number of things that break.
There was one day crossing from Mexico to French Polynesia, and we had things break every day. And one day Diana goes, if something breaks today, it's not getting fixed.
And tell the rest of that story. Shortly after that,
Diana was sleeping. You want to tell it?
Go ahead.
She was sleeping in the salon on the bench, and I went in to use her head, as you call the bathroom. And I went in and I closed the door and the handle fell off. And so now I'm stuck in the bathroom. And Diana, all I hear is giggling from outside because Diana's like, oh,
I knew what it was. The handle kept falling off all the time.
Oh my gosh.
So now, having not ever been on a sailboat, I don't think not once have I ever been on a sailboat. So I have no idea how it all works. Is there like a tank that your when you go to the bathroom that it goes into, or does it go right into the water?
It goes into a tank.
Then
you open the tank when you are at least 3 miles from any land. But crossing the ocean, we kept it 12 miles. Well, maybe across the ocean. I guess in Puget Sound, it's 3 miles. Wasn't it 3?
Actually, the new rule in Puget Sound is none. You have to cross the border. You have to cross the border into Canada because they don't have the same law.
Okay. Anyway, you have to be far away from land to open it up. So I think crossing the ocean, we had it open for a while, but we found out that wasn't a good thing. And so
things crawl up there and grow inside your through-hole valve.
Yeah.
Oh, gotcha. So but it's very challenging to do what you guys did. Now I don't even know how sailboats work. At nighttime, would you guys lower your masts and use the engine? Would you how did that work? And because I imagine, first of all, when you're crossing the ocean, there's nowhere to park. So you can't park anywhere, and there's no street lights, and it must have been really beautiful to look at the sky, though.
Unbelievable. You know what my favorite thing about night sailing is? On a clear night, the stars cascade down onto the water 360 degrees around you. And one night we saw this star coming up over the horizon, and we said, oh, it's a boat. And it was a star. And as it kept going higher and higher, we're like, it's not a boat, because we never saw anyone out there. So we were so excited that there might be a mass out there, that we'd have some company on the ocean.
So
I think we watched for many, many nights the Southern Cross, which was phenomenal. It was just always there. It seems like even when we had clouds, the Southern Cross was there. And that's what we often would steer to make sure that we were on course. We would just look up there, not only look at our charts and our screens and everything, but sometimes I would just steer straight to the Southern Cross.
And what is the Southern Cross?
It's a star formation.
It's
looks like a
our
big
North Star.
diamond. It's like what?
Gotcha.
Our North Star. So they don't
Yeah.
have our North Star, and we don't have their Southern Cross.
Yeah.
Got you. Well, because we look north for the North Star, and you can't look north if you're going south.
Nope. I miss the Southern Cross. And if you know the song by Stephen Stills, Southern Cross, that was when he left California and sailed across the ocean and to the Marquesas. So next time you listen to that song, think of Diana and I. We played that every night at sunset. That was our crew song. Yep.
At sunset, we would have dinner every night, and we had 7 different sailing songs we'd listen to as the sun went down. And then we knew it was time to start our shifts, our night shifts. But that was just what we did every day. We'd have dinner together. And then as it started to get dark, we would then go our separate ways, get sleep, or start our shifts. But started out listening to those 7 songs.
How did the night shift work?
Well, we did 4-hour shifts. And if it was rough conditions, we would have 2 people on deck. So you could always just yell to the other person, wake them up if you needed them. When it was super calm, there were times when people were all sleeping downstairs, but you always knew. So if I was the first one on and I was on my shift, then the next person knew they were coming on. So they would set their alarm and get ready and get fed if they needed something, get bundled up if they needed it. But more often than not, it was warm enough. We weren't even wearing coats. And then you would rotate through the night. If things got dicey, you'd hear a whistle and all hands on deck. And then we would have to outrun a squall or whatever, do a tacking or whatever, jibing if there was something that had to be done with the sails.
Mm-hmm.
That's amazing. And it didn't scare you. You weren't. I mean, what? Because you don't know. Well, tell me. But I'm assuming that when the water gets rough, and you don't know how rough it's going to get.
Well, we hoped that we were smart enough and used all our resources that we weren't going to get in the diciest, scariest thing that would take us down. Here's what happened. We went to a sea safety course over in Bainbridge, and they made us get in the pool in our gear with our life vests on, and we had to crawl into one of those emergency rafts that we were carrying with us. And we get inside and they say the first thing that happens when you get in the raft is someone will puke. So our goal this entire trip was never to have to execute the life raft and never have to get in it. And it was tough. In the conditions that we saw out there, I'm not sure we would have gotten our life raft off the boat and gotten everybody in the water and gotten in that life raft. It's quite an ordeal.
Oh, I can imagine. Now, I was reading an article recently about something called a rogue wave. Are you familiar with that?
Yes.
And I read that same article, Kevin.
What?
I read that same article. I never want to see a rogue wave like that.
No,
I think you saw a few. I remember nighttime, you being at the helm and getting slammed, not like what you're talking about, not a massive rogue wave, but they would hit us. Yeah. A small wave would hit us broadsided out of nowhere. And that would happen at night sometimes. But I remember one night you screamed and that doesn't scream about anything. and that one scared you.
Are you sure it was that, or was it the whale?
I think maybe it was the whale.
It was the whale.
I think maybe it was both.
No, with the whale, we were in Tonga and it was a full moon and there were whales all around us. The humpbacks come up from Antarctica and then they come to Tonga and have their babies and head south. So everyone went to bed. It's like 10:30 at night. The full moon is out. We're sailing on a beam reach. It's about 30 knots of wind. And all of a sudden, a humpback surfaces right at the stern, right at me, and splashes in the water. And I scream, and nobody does anything. And so all of a sudden, I yell,
trying to sleep.
I yell, all hands on deck. And everybody comes up and they go, what's wrong? And I go, there's a whale. And they go, and there's whales everywhere. So what we did is we were sailing. So we turned on the engine, and the vibration of the engine notifies the whales that we're out there. And then they give you a little clearance and don't mess with us like that.
Well, could it be that humpback knew that you were there and decided that he was going to play a game with you?
Oh, probably.
Yeah.
They're pretty smart.
So you saw whales. I'm sure you saw dolphins and other marine. What was it? Did you see any sharks?
One time, I think we saw a whale shark. But
Now, those are
mostly
huge.
when you cross the ocean, it's like crossing a desert. You see very little wildlife. We saw dolphins, coming down the coast off California, a pod of 500 or so that just came for, I don't know, it seemed like 10 minutes, 10, 15 minutes. They just kept coming. But when you cross the ocean, we had a few birds hitch a ride with us, but you see almost nothing. No wildlife. We had flying fish that would land on the boat. And
we were shocked. We were
yeah.
absolutely shocked after coming from the Northwest and Mexico, the Sea of Cortez. We just couldn't believe that it's a little scary when you think about it, because we should have seen more activity than we saw, we feel.
Yeah. Until we got to the Marquesas, till we got to areas where there was landmass, we really didn't see wildlife.
It's interesting that you bring that up, Anne, because one of the things that we're worried about, I think, is the damage to the ocean caused by the trash and the stuff. Did you see in the middle of the ocean? Did you see any trash just out there floating around?
We weren't where that trash area is north. The garbage dump is north of Hawaii, and we are south of Hawaii.
So they actually call it the garbage dump?
They call it the Pacific Patch or Pacific Garbage Patch. That makes it sound better than dump.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. So I got to ask you. You guys are together 24/7 on a boat for 14 months. Did you ever have any arguments? Did you want to throw each other overboard?
No,
I don't recall any arguments with Anne or anybody.
Well, we might have had one crew member, but it wasn't arguments.
No, I think everybody pretty much got along. I mean, I don't recall any big conflicts, other than the one crew member that didn't quite fit in. But other than that,
we got lucky because we've heard a lot of horror stories. But when we started this, before everyone came on, I said I'd go with Diana again. You asked me if I was going to go out there. I would be scared to go on another boat and have it be conflict, because we just were so lucky.
We were so busy, there wasn't time for that. Really. I mean, you're just busy all day. You think you will have all the time in the world out there, but you're trying to catch up on sleep. You're trying to cook. You're trying to analyze the weather. You're looking at charts. You're busy all day. So you're separate a lot too. Someone is trying to catch up on sleep. Somebody's at the helm. Somebody's cooking. So you have your own time. And then we had our time together at sunset every day and at dinner. So we were busy. It's hard to imagine, but that was one of my biggest surprises, that I was busy all day. Just living in the moment, just trying to navigate this boat and trying to get where we're going was a full-time job. Full-time job. You know, you weren't distracted by the news, you weren't distracted by life. You were just out there living in the moment every day.
And I miss that.
Yeah, I miss that too. I do too. We never lived the shootings. We would get headline news about shootings, but they're not embedded in my brain like the other ones that I lived through. And you saw all the news stories when I lived here. Out there, we would get the headlines and we'd hear that there was a shooting here and there was this going on and these world crises going on, but we didn't live them. We didn't pay much attention to them because we had enough. We were just busy, you know, in our own little world out there, surviving, you know, and trying to get where we're going. That was our world. That's all we did. It was just us, the weather and the seas and breakdowns. That was, and breakdowns.
Now, is it unusual for a sailboat to be womaned by just women? Is that an unusual thing? And did you find anybody that found that unusual?
I think, you know, it's something I never really thought of or put much thought into it before I left, but we constantly were admired or questions, or it was, to other people, we were unusual. To me, it didn't seem like I was doing anything unusual. And but there were very few women boats, and there were a couple solo women sailing, but I think we were one of two.
Well, and we have some funny stories. Like we're sitting in Mexico when we were getting ready to leave, and you have immigration come on your boat, and they didn't speak English, so they had a female there that was interpreting, and we had a guy friend sitting on the boat with us. 4 of us girls were leaving on the boat to go on the 3,000-mile journey to the Marquesas. So the men kept looking to our friend Marshall and referring questions to him. And finally he said, "I'm not going on this boat." He goes, "I'm going to go in a couple of years. I'm not the captain." And they're like, "Well, who's the captain?" It's like, oh, then they were almost embarrassed and they said, "Sorry." Because I don't think they had a girl boat leave there in a very long time.
Yeah.
Well, it's remarkable that you guys, first of all, Anne, I got to congratulate you because you've lived your life just like you wanted to, and you became a captain and you worked very hard at it. You've got to sail around the world. You've seen some, you know, things that we only get to see in movies, most of us. You've lived it, and both
we feel special. We feel blessed for that. Yeah. And you're tying into your show, Kevin, one thing that happened every day, and Diana and I had been to Alaska together in 2014 on Arctic Loon for 71 days. And every morning we would say to each other, what's going to happen today? Like, we're on an adventure. We want to know what animals are we going to see? What people are we going to meet? What new things are we going to learn? And that's exactly what we did across the Pacific. And it goes back to, it's a great way to live. If we live that way every day, waking up going, what's the excitement that's going to happen to me today?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. That, you know, and I wish that we all did that. If we could all just say, today is going to be a great day and I can't wait to see how it unfolds.
Mm-hmm.
Then that
well,
would
I love your quote at the beginning. What is it? About starting your day. Oh, now I'm forgetting it. You might
have to listen to the replay.
You have that. It's starting your day with a great moment makes the day great, or something.
Yeah, something. I can't even remember what I wrote, but it's how we should all. I think how we should all live, because you remember, Anne, when I was doing the show in 2003, and you remember Gilda's Club?
Yep.
And because I know you were very involved with the community. For those who don't know, Gilda's Club was a cancer outreach and support group that would support people that had cancer, and obviously, and their families. And I had some of them on one day, and a 4-time cancer survivor said, I asked her what the secret to life was. And she said, well, if you have one foot in the past and one foot in the future, you're pissing on the present. And
I've heard that. Yeah.
so
Yeah.
it's like if the present is all we've got. And
I
so
love that. I love that because that's what this journey was like, living in the moment for sure.
And we met so many cool people. I mean, our Rolodex of friends, because you used that word on your show the other day, what a Rolodex is. It's amazing. We met, like Diana mentioned, the female solo sailors. One was a 77-year-old woman sailing a Chinese junk, and she had a cat. And you're just looking at her in this tiny, what was it, 28 feet or something? Maybe
I think so.
Or 34. And we are looking at her going, and we meet her in Tonga when our journey's almost over. And then there was Elena, who left San Francisco, and she was a foster child. And she decided to sail the world to educate people and raise awareness of foster kids around the world. So we just had some incredible people that were an inspiration to us. I mean, we were an inspiration to some people and we didn't even know it, but there were a lot of people that were inspirational to us.
Mm-hmm. And we met people from all over the world, people from South Africa, from Chile, from everywhere. So people who had been on their boat for 5 years,
or 17. What about
Ed 17 from Alaska? Yeah, a couple.
And they had only made it through the Panama, up the East Coast, up into New England, then back down Caribbean, the Panama, and we met them in French Polynesia, and that took them 17 years. And they I'm like, okay, you guys. Well, they'd been back to Washington and back to Alaska a few times and Hawaii, because they'd been to Alaska. So they were more doing the circuit instead of the whole globe.
And I think you had this instant camaraderie with everybody because you instantly had something to talk about, your passage or your boat or something going on. But the thing that was really eye-opening too is that nobody cared about what people did in their prior life, what career they had, when they retired. We were all just out there. It didn't matter if you were a lawyer, a doctor, or a clerk. It didn't matter. Nothing mattered. You were all on an even plane out there. You were all just sailors. And
if you were a boat mechanic, then you were
you were prized. You were the top of the list for sure. Good point. Yeah.
It's you learned a lot, didn't you? About people, about life, about how to live purposefully and positively and moving forward. That's really great, because you met some folks that were a 77-year-old woman with a cat on her own on the ocean. That's hard to believe.
But I think it's also the local people we met. I'd say that these were the happiest people I've ever met in my life, and they had so little, and it didn't matter. But they were happy on these islands that we saw people. They were just happy with what they had. They weren't wanting anything or needing anything. They were just learn to live and be happy with their community. It was more community-based than what we have in the U.S.
That's really cool. I've heard that before, that there are places on our planet where people have nothing, absolutely nothing, but they're happy.
Yeah.
Because they have food, the simplicity of life is that they have food, they have water, they have friends, and that's what else do you need?
Exactly. We saw that over and over.
And we really saw it in Tonga because they have not been commercialized. they have kept control. So there's no major hotels there.
So there's no McDonald's?
No.
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 I thought there was a McDonald's and a Starbucks everywhere on the planet.
No Starbucks.
No Starbucks.
Oh,
No.
that must have been cruel and unusual punishment if you couldn't have your coffee in the morning.
We had our coffee. We stocked up on that.
So what did you guys eat? Was it all because did you have a refrigerator and electricity and all that stuff, or was it did you have to was everything kind of freeze dried and that kind of thing?
We had a refrigerator for a while till it broke. Remember that? Or if we did have a refrigerator, the freezer broke. That's what it was. So we did have to eat a lot of freezer food quickly. We ate a lot of dried grains, dried beans. We were a vegetarian boat. So we didn't have meat on board. I can't tell you what we ate, but it wasn't an issue.
We had a pressure cooker, so we could make incredible soups like our West African peanut soup and different things. And then because we had a freezer and we had it for quite a while, we would freeze part of what we would make. And then when you were hungry, you just went to the freezer. But we ate wherever we came to, whatever was in season, because they don't get shipments of food. You eat the tomatoes because tomatoes are in season, but if their tomatoes aren't in season, you don't eat tomatoes.
But I think for me, food just became nourishment out there. It's the first time where you're not obsessed with food. I didn't crave food. I wasn't missing anything, but I was satisfied. I think we ate well. We had plenty of food and stir fries. We had stir fries a lot and easy things.
So I got to ask you then, if you're a vegetarian boat and you have a flying fish come in and land on the deck, what do you do? Throw it back?
Well, we usually found them dead the next morning. They would arrive overnight. So yeah, we would just throw them back.
Except for the one. We don't know how this happened, but one flew into the cockpit and flew into the line bag. And so after a couple of days, we're like, do you smell a dead fish? And Diana's vegetarian, right? So and she doesn't even eat fish. And so we searched that boat. We look everywhere. And finally, I look at that line bag and I think, we better pull those lines out. And sure enough, by then, I think it was completely dehydrated, but the lines, everything stunk. And
so let me get this straight. In the middle of the night, you would hear a thump. And you wouldn't really see it until the next morning?
No, we wouldn't hear anything.
They're tiny. They're but they really, they're the coolest things. They have wings. They really do fly. So when you find them, they're just like a long, skinny fish with these wings.
And they just kind of skim the surface of the water. But then they see a boat and they're, I guess, have to go up and
they're curious. The light strom.
Yeah, maybe it was the lights. Yeah, you ask about electricity. We had solar panels, so that's how we got our power. That and occasionally we'd have to run the engine to recharge the batteries. But solar panels were key. That kept our instruments going, that kept our lights going. These stove was propane, so we had a propane tank for that.
And we had a desalinator water maker, so we had plenty of water.
Yes.
Can you imagine what it would have been like to sail over the oceans 150 years ago?
No.
Especially Anne has a friend who did it how long ago?
Yeah, there's a guy named John Guswell, and when he was 25, he had built a boat up in Victoria, a 21-foot boat, and he sailed around the world. First went to New Zealand, then got on someone else's boat, then gone back on his boat and sailed back to Victoria. But he had no toilet. He had no
None of the modern
hydration.
conveniences.
He had no navigation. And so John was kind of our mentor. And when things would be rough, we'd say, John did it. Without all this luxury, we can do it.
Yeah, well, as long as he had a bucket, he was probably going to be okay as far as his facilities. And he
has a book, actually, Kevin, and he's now 88 years old. He lives in Paulsbo. And if anybody wants to get the book for a family member or themselves, it's called Trekka, and that's the name of his boat. It's Trekka by John Guswell, and the boat has been restored, and it's in the Victoria Maritime Museum, if anyone's ever up there.
Oh, wow. That's pretty cool. So Diana, you guys got to New Zealand, and that was your destination. So you weren't going to come back. You weren't going to take the boat back, or did you fly home? What did you do?
The plan was to bring it home, but my things changed. So basically, once we got to New Zealand, I went home for Christmas and came back, and then Anne, you stayed.
Yep.
And then so I toured. Anne, another friend, and I toured for 3 weeks. Then my husband came and I toured for 3 weeks. And then COVID hit. So Anne and I, she had moved on to another boat at this time. And we both went through lockdown in New Zealand early on in COVID, where we couldn't leave. The airplane stopped. So we were in two different marinas in very strict lockdown, with probably the only country in the world that beat the virus. I mean, we lived it, extreme lockdown for months, watching the numbers go down every day until one day New Zealand had eradicated it. And we were all in tears. For days, you'd run into people and we were tearing up because we felt like we had won the war, and they got rid of it. And then things opened up again, and eventually the virus came back, and New Zealand has become like everybody else. They're battling it right now. But I have not been able to go back to my boat. I came home as soon as they got rid of the virus. Airplanes were flying again. I was able to go home. The borders were still closed. And so I have not been able to go back in probably 2 years. So
and there's quite a handful of people that can't get to New Zealand to their boats, including the boat I moved to. And it's a real struggle. Worldwide, there's 10,000 cruising sailboats not in their home countries. Most of them have their owners on them, but the borders haven't opened yet. People aren't free to, you can always sail home to your home country, but to sail home to Seattle from New Zealand, you've got to go upwind all the way, and it's a journey. So most people leave New Zealand and go over to Australia, go over to the Suez Canal or down around the Cape of South Africa, and then go up and go to the Caribbean and come home. But that takes years.
And you can't really leave New Zealand because there's no place to go to. All the places that you need to stop at, their borders are closed. You can't stop in Fiji. You can't stop in Tahiti. Now you can, but until weeks ago.
But not many. I mean, I think Tahiti and Fiji are the only countries down there that are open to cruisers right now.
Yeah. So everybody's really dead in the water here. It's just, you can't get back to your boat. You have no choice but to just leave it there and
now,
wait it out.
Is somebody taking care of it, or is it just moored there?
It is on the hard, which means it's out of the water in a marina. And so the marina is checking on it, taking care of it. But it's been, when did I come home? Last June. So it's been almost a year and a half since I left it there.
Wow.
And can't get back.
You think that COVID will hopefully but it affects everybody, and it's affected you guys, and it changed everything about what you guys were doing.
Right.
And it's really sad because, like, Judy and Ed that we talked about that had been out for 17 years. They've
Yeah.
now sold their boat. They sailed it back to California, and they're living on land again. And that was not their plan. Our other friends on Tango, they've had their boat shipped back to Texas, and they are back in the United States. And then our other friends this next couple weeks are shipping their boat from Auckland to Spain, and then they're flying to Spain when they can fly to Spain. And then they'll live on their boat in the Mediterranean. But it's just changed everybody's.
But the people who did this trip the year after we did it were really the ones who felt the effects of this, because they got stranded in places like Tahiti and weren't allowed to go ashore. And these islands weren't getting their shipments of supplies. And they were struggling to feed their own people. And so you have all these boaters that they're scared to death of COVID. They're not letting them go ashore, and the boaters can't get the supplies they need. So they would just send out boats to sell them, food and water. But people were like for months and not able to go to shore places. So they had it rougher. The people who left 2019 to do this journey, we left 2018.
There's a Facebook website called Stranded at Sea. And when you read the stories, and sadly, people died of COVID on their boats around the world.
Oh, I can believe it.
Spouse was left with the boat without their spouse to continue their journey or to make the hard decisions while they're dealing with the death of their spouse. So I would tease Diana and say, every boat has a story. There needs to be a book written. Well, now after COVID, there needs to be like 10 books written about it.
Yes.
Well, I hope you guys are you going to write a book, Ann?
It's coming. Yep.
I know you've got a slideshow presentation that you've done too.
Yep. And I'm trying to get it professionally or more professionally done so it can be on YouTube. So if people go to YouTube right now and type in Captain Ann Alberg, there's an original slideshow that was done on the Asmar cruise ship. And it is our trip from Paulsbo to Tonga, but you never know if we actually made it to New Zealand or not.
Well, you did, and it worked, and you survived it, and you survived COVID. It's quite a story, guys. And I'd like to thank you both for being here, because it's Ann, you're following your dream, you followed your passion, you're now a captain, you're doing all of this great stuff. You must be proud of yourself.
I forget about it, and then when I do the presentation and people ask questions or comment, or young women are inspired, I realize what we really did. And Diana is on to another journey, so briefly she should tell you what she's up to right now.
Well, I kind of spur of the moment moved to Hawaii, to a coffee farm, to a Kona coffee farm. So I have a couple of acres of coffee plants and grow Kona coffee now. So, and I love it here. I was meant to live in the tropics on an island, and it's a great place to be. So this is my next life after that journey.
And you're in one of the best places in the world, because it's warm, it's got tropical stuff, but it doesn't have snakes. And so I'm very happy about that.
No snakes, but we have earthquakes and we have volcano eruption. And I had a lightning strike a couple of weeks ago, or maybe a month ago, very close to my house. So there's always something.
Yep, there's always something. Something always goes happen. So, ladies, I'd like to thank you very much for being here today. It's been awesome. And Ann, when your book comes out, hint, hint, hint,
yep,
you're going to have to come back, and we're going to have to talk about you more in depth. And Diana, I hope that the coffee business is treating you well, and you are one tough lady, I got to tell you, to just follow your dream and do whatever you're going to do.
I got trained by Ann. That's how it come.
It's what happens when two people come together.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed. Well, I'm glad you're both here. And Ann, thank you so much for everything that you're doing. It's just awesome. So
thank you, Kevin.
I have to go in just a second, but give me your 1 minute speech of life. What do you want our audience to know?
Go ahead, Anne. I'd say just do it. Don't wait. Just go do it.
Yep. I think I'll add to that and just say life is short, and every day we find out of someone that's got a new disability or cancer, and just go out and do it. And, you learn on the way, and you make great friends, and people help you.
Don't wait till it's all lined up perfectly, because it'll never happen. You'll never get it all in order the way you think it should be in your mind. Just go. You'll figure it out.
You'll regret what you don't do.
Yeah.
Ooh, there's a bumper sticker. That's a t-shirt too.
That's a t-shirt. That's a book. And second book.
Absolutely. Ladies, stay right there. I got to do this and I'll be right back.
Okay. Thanks, Kevin.
Thanks for enjoying this episode all the way to the end. Please give us a like and subscribe to this channel. This has been a production of kmmedia.pro. Please visit our website, oddly enough, named kmmedia.pro, for more details about us and our mission, which is to provide great positive programming designed to inspire us all. I'm Kevin McDonald, and I'm proud of these shows, and I truly hope that you'll like them and share them with friends and family. So on behalf of our entire team, remember, be kind to each other, because each other's all we've got. We'll see you next time.